We're delighted to be joined now by Stephen Silverman. This is a mouthful. Director of Investigations and Enforcement, Campaign Against Antisemitism. Good for him. Stephen, welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. I'm fine, thank you.
Just put into words, I had Sarah Doherty yesterday, Sarah Doherty, and I, a good friend of mine, and you could see in his eyes, when you saw what happened at Glastonbury, that ill-educated oaf saying deaf, deaf to the IDF, what did that make you think?
Well, it wasn't just the fact that he said it. It was the extent to which he roused the crowd into joining with him in shouting it. And one word comes to mind to describe how I and British Jews in general are feeling now, and that is unsafe. And it is hard to believe that we've reached that point, given the part that British Jews have played in British society for so long, that we now feel unsafe in our own country. But we shouldn't be surprised. For 20 months, since 7th of October 2023, we've seen escalation after escalation in violent and hateful rhetoric, the use of imagery, statements, and each time it happens, it becomes the norm. And it was inevitable that we would now get to this point. And already it is becoming the norm, because we saw a bunch of idiots outside a court where Palestine Action was being tried yesterday. What did they chant? Death, death to the IDF. So we are in a very parlous state in this country, and Jews are feeling very unsafe, but everybody should be concerned, because we know that when this level of hatred gets a country in its grip, Jews might be the first to feel the consequences, but they are anything but the last.
I couldn't agree with you any more than I do. And interestingly, for me, there's so much I want to talk to you about. I asked Jonathan Serradotti yesterday a question I'm going to ask you, and I don't tread carefully, but I do try and understand how sensitive it is. Nobody can be anything but appalled at what happened on October the 7th. I was on air. Nobody can like what they see in Gaza. Do you believe, Stephen, and Jonathan answered this, that Netanyahu and what is going on in the Middle East, I know about misrepresentation, but the optics for so many people, they would lay at his door majoritatively. Do you think that is causing difficulties for Jews across the world, those in Britain? Do you think that that is fueling some of the anger, or what?
Well, let me be very clear. The cause of anti-Semitism is anti-Semites. Yeah, and they will use anything as a pretext to justify their hatred. And I think what happened was that we underestimated the size of the seam of anti-Semitism that was lying dormant in this country. This is its moment, and it has seized it. What's made it doubly, triply worrying is the extent to which it's been able to radicalize others who all they know about Israel, the war in Gaza, international law is what they've been served up on social media. And these people have been radicalized by the...
I'm not disagreeing with anything you say, but I would say this to the Jewish community, and I've been very vocal in my support and will continue to be so. Those drunken middle-class Surrey and Islington kids in the Glastonbury crowd were either off their heads or whatever. Have they been radicalised, or are they just stupid like the Just Stop Oil people that just jump on board the latest activist train and jump up and down and go, oh my God? That's what I'd say. I mean, I've seen, I went to a university of one of my daughters, and there's you know, they're all marching around with their Palestinian T-shirts, right? And then they go home in the holidays and go off to their mummy and daddy's house in Mallorca, because they don't, it's just the latest thing. I'm more concerned that we seemingly, and I make the point again, in my mind, any racism is abhorrent, but why is there far more outrage at apparent Islamophobia, but anti-Semitism is okay? It's not about the colour of your skin. If you're calling for the death or the eradication or the end of a race or a religion or a creed, that's fundamentally wrong, isn't it?
Well, it is. And of course, what we are seeing all the multitude of protests and marches and rallies that we've seen isn't criticism of the actions of the Israeli government, but criticism of the very idea of the existence of Israel, of a Jewish state, and a desire to see it completely dismantled, and to hell with the millions of Jews who live there, let alone the 2 million Arab Israelis who have the same democratic rights as we do here, the only Arabs in the Middle East to enjoy that. And I think, you know, what we're seeing, it's a mixture of people. I think there are absolutely some that fit the description you've just given of essentially a bunch of idiots out for a laugh and joining in with the crowd. I think there are people who are absolutely loving it because this is their time and they can get away with it. And there are others who have been conned into believing that this is the moral cause of the century, that they can get behind, virtue signal, and go to bed with a light conscience at night.
I'd love to take your opinion as well on and again, I've been quite outspoken about the BBC. I think the BBC has passed its sell-by date. I think that, I mean, the chief rabbi today said that the airing of the vile Jew hatred is national shame. I couldn't agree with him any more if I wanted to. I mean, when I discovered yesterday during the show that Tim Davie, the Director General, was actually at Glastonbury and knew about this and said, well, I won't allow it on demand, but it can stay on streaming for five hours or whatever. Another one who doesn't seem to be able to make any right decisions at all. In your mind, the BBC, are they anti-Semitic? Did they get this badly wrong? What do you want to see happen to them?
I don't know if they're anti-Semitic. I know a great many people are concerned. And in fact, a former very senior figure at the BBC, Danny Cohen,
yes,
has said that the BBC is institutionally anti-Semitic, and you can understand why he would think that. There is something deeply troubling that's embedded at the BBC, was a confusing thing. And in the 20 months that have elapsed since the 7th of October 2023, the BBC have got it wrong time and time and time again.
Are they still refusing to call Hamas a terrorist organisation?
They are, and they've had to apologise. Now, in the normal scheme of things, you would expect those mistakes to even out.
But they're not mistakes, are they? You and I both know it's deliberate ideology, isn't it? It's deliberate ideology. It's got to be.
Well, I think well, we can only speculate because we don't know. It's possibly partly ideology. It's partly fear of standing up and resisting the other people who do hold that ideology. We just don't know. But the BBC have utterly shamed themselves. Yeah. If they can't be trusted on this issue, how on earth can they be trusted as even-handed news source on any other issue? And, you know, we have called for Tim Davie to go. He said chance after chance to sort this out. This is possibly the most egregious failure on his part. And somebody needs to be accountable, and I'm afraid it should be Tim Davie.
I told the story yesterday, you won't have been listening, but I told the story yesterday about going to my son's speech day on Saturday, and a BBC News journalist comedian was the speaker, and the first 4 minutes were great, and then he just launched into anti-Trump, anti-Brexit, pro-net zero. And I'm sat there thinking, as I think about this, you know, there are two sides to every coin. I don't purport to think that everything I say is correct, or I'm sure you're exactly the same, but if you're going to tell kids and tell the world, you need to have both sides of the argument. And it strikes me that in this whole argument about what's happening in the Middle East, and this fear amongst the Jewish community of anti-Semitism is being fueled by, I don't know, I can't find the right words, but when I drive through London and I see the unwashed student fraternity wearing Palestinian T-shirts and flags, I want to stop and say, do you know what you're supporting? When they, like with Just Stop Oil, do you know anything about Just Stop Oil, you odious bunch of... I don't know. It just annoys me that things that matter so much. And I have many Jewish friends. I say it every day, I make no apology. I've got friends whose kids can't wear their blazers in North London on the bus for fear of reprisal. What the hell does that tell you? What does that tell you? It's very easy, isn't it, to attack the Jewish community. People want to remember how much the Jewish community has done for this country and how embedded in this country the Jewish community is. But we don't hear that. We hear Netanyahu, Gaza. I get all that, but we're talking about people who have lived here all their lives and are British and are part of this country. That's what I think.
Well, I mean, you look at what happened on the Trevor Phillips show on Sky on Sunday when Wes Treating was being interviewed and he was asked about this. And his response was that Israel needs to get its house in order. That was an absolutely dreadful response. And it seems that Jewish concerns are largely being ignored because they know we will not cause trouble. We do not cause trouble. We see it time and time again at the incessant marches where offences on one side go unheeded while people protesting in support of the hostages that are still being held in Gaza are arrested for spurious reasons because the police know that they are not going to cause trouble. They are not going to be difficult to deal with. What has happened to this country over the last 20 months should terrify every decent, moral person.
Couldn't agree more. Lovely to have you on, Stephen. Delighted that you came on. A Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Stephen Silverman.